Stephen Edwards picked a dog-friendly bar for us to meet in, as he has a little puppy, Lyla. He got her a year ago to help him with his depression routine, and responsibility work wonders. When GQ gets there at 4 p.m., Lyla's sleeping on his lap. Edwards, drinking lemonade, is nervous. It's still massively a work in progress, he says of his current condition, glancing over. Just knowing I'm doing this, meeting you. I've been in a bit of a state all day. The day after he first wrote about his depression on Facebook, in May 2016, he wrote a public blog post. He was going to be cycling around and climbing up Mount Snowdon, then kayaking for 4 kilometers, to raise money for mental health charity Mind, and needed to explain why. Had wanted to do a positive post, but when it came to it, he couldn't. Low, he wrote. Lower than a snake's belly. I cannot cope. According to the recent adult psychiatric morbidity survey conducted by NATS and social research for NHS Digital, 1 in 6 adults surveyed in England met the criteria of a common social disorder. This consultant psychiatrist Lenny Cornwall tells GQ takes in a wide range of issues, including anxiety, OCD, panic and depression, but many more of us could be affected at some point in our lives. Everybody will have had an experience when, looking back on it, they may say it was a pretty bad time, says Cornwall. If you look at whether you've had a mental health problem at any time in your life, it's probably more like 1 in 2 people. Recently, after a decade of physical and mental suffering, Edwards was diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, which has led to depression. In retrospect, he says, his anxiety was born 10 years ago, when he became a policeman in Hackney. He didn't realize it then, but he was being bullied at work by a senior member of staff who, he says, made his life hell. This resulted in irritable bowel syndrome, which was enormously disruptive. Eventually he had a couple of breakdowns. One saw him smashing his car up while he was driving, and then, at work, I ripped my clothes off, had a blown anxiety attack. I couldn't do my job. I needed serious help. After that I was off work for nearly a year. Things got a lot worse before they started to get better. 76% of UK suicides are male. It's the biggest killer of men under 50. His breakdowns, he says now, stemmed from years of emotional denial. As a policeman, due to his steely demeanor, he'd often be the one sent out to deal with heavy situations. It was the same in his personal life. People would come to him with problems, because he never got wound up, never got upset, never got angry, never got excited. I'd shoved everything in a box for so long, and now it was trying to get out. His parents split up when he was 16. Later his mother told him he didn't cry, just took it on the chin. I was like, whatever. Getting upset isn't going to help me. But it turns out it would have done. Bear Grylls on how to find and keep a team that works for you. During her speech to the Charity Commission in January, Theresa May proposed plans to transform attitudes to mental health, aware that it is dangerously disregarded as secondary to physical health. If you have a mental health problem, people are more likely to try to avoid you, she said. Edwards has had extreme experience of this. As police officers we deal with mental health every day, he says. You've got drug addicts, missing persons, people with bipolar, all day, every day. People describe them as nut jobs, so for anybody else to say that maybe they've got some of those problems, you just automatically get put in that box. Someone will turn up in an office role and everyone's always like, oh, what are they doing there? They've gone a bit wibble. I stalk naturally. This attitude does not encourage openness. Edwards believed that showing his emotions would be a weakness, so for years he never did. After his breakdowns came horrific bouts of self-harm, some of which, he says, were a way of communicating how much trouble he was in, because he didn't know how to talk about it. People can be worried about opening up for fear of another person's reaction, says Cornwall. Even I have patients who say to me, I didn't want to tell you that because I thought you might be cross with me. That just doesn't happen. The important step forward is for the person to think about what they're doing and talk to somebody about it, but somebody who's not going to panic about it or be judgmental. Helplines such as the Samaritans can be great as a way to talk to somebody about it in a useful way. There were 6,188 suicides in the UK in 2015, an increase on 2014. Get insider access to Art Basel. Miami Beach with Super DJ Guy Gerber after trying to strangle himself with a t-shirt in bed one night. Thwarted by his wife, Edwards went to his GP and was prescribed antidepressants, which had a temporarily positive effect. Then, though, came more self-harm, a return trip to the GP and some different drugs. Transitioning between antidepressants created awful side effects, but finally last summer he saw a psychiatrist who prescribed him something that helped substantially. The trouble, says Cornwall, is that medications can be very effective, but the science isn't there to say who's going to respond to what. There's a lot of trial and error to find something that's going to work. It's a discussion that has to be had at the outset. It's going to be a difficult process to get to what's going to work for you. If a person knows that, then they're more likely to put up with side effects in the hope it gets somewhere. Searching for a better way to express his pain than self-harm, Edwards finally started to talk about how he felt and then write about it. People knew I was ill, he wrote on his blog last September, so I didn't have to show them anymore. Opening up has helped immeasurably. Before, if I felt something, I would suppress it, he says. But what helps me is the opposite. Talking about it is how I cope with it. He's also decided that police work is not for him. There's still a long way to go, but today he seems healthy, happy and talkative. Cornwall believes that people today are communicating more about their mental health issues. I think the stigma is going down, he says. People are in the media talking about what's happened to them, and that helps people, undoubtedly. Indeed, millennials are highly vocal on the subject. While promoting his debut album, grime artist Stormzy spoke to Channel 4 about his experiences with depression, which he documented through the nets, and social research data shows the proportion of people who have got a significant problem and are getting help, continues Cornwall. In 2009, it was 30%. In 2014, it was 45%. So it's got better, but it's still bad. As a police officer, feeling that he needed to be the embodiment of strength, Edwards found it tough to talk, to the point of denial, but such trepidation affects many of us. Sometimes, says Cornwall, telling independently minded men or women who consider themselves the type of person who sorts their own problems out, that the solution to their problem is to talk to somebody, can be undermining or counterintuitive for them. But it's worth a push. Suicide rates have been rising. There were 6,188 in the UK in 2015, an increase on 2014, and 76% of UK suicides are male. It's now the biggest killer of men under 50. It needn't be. If you're suffering, talk. If you sense someone is suffering, talk. We just need to talk. For more information, visit mind.org.uk.